Today's gospel reading deals with the topic of correction. So notice how it says if somebody sins against you or has a fault that they commit, then you should correct that person, ideally by themselves, individually. So if they sin against you or some fault, we have a duty to point it out. And we do this out of charity because we don't want the person to continue in their error. Now notice how it mentions if they don't listen to you, bring one or two others with you to confirm that what you are saying is indeed correct. And if they still don't listen to you, then bring the matter to the church. And if they don't listen to the church, then treat such a one as a Gentile or a tax collector. In other words, they're kind of like an outsider. They're no longer members of the church. To be Catholic, we have to accept everything that the church teaches, including the church's moral teachings. Now, it's interesting if you think about it, like if you're a Protestant, how would you interpret this? How would you envision this in real life? So, sure, you could bring the matter to your pastor or maybe have a fellow congregant, talk to the person you're trying to correct. But when it says bring it to the church, which church? Doesn't, like, if you're a Protestant, right? The church, Protestants believe the church is comprised of all the believers, but the church has to be a hierarchical structure with authority. So in other words, bring it to the authority of the church. We only see this in the Catholic Church, possibly in the Orthodox Church, but it's only in the Catholic Church that we can have this hierarchical structure where someone is always answerable to someone above them. So this theme of correction is also present in today's first reading from the book of the prophet Ezekiel. And before I comment on today's reading, I wanted to draw your attention to yesterday's reading. If you recall, the prophet Ezekiel is told to eat this scroll, and it's sweet in his mouth. But on the scroll, what is written is words of lamentation and mourning and woe. And if you recall, most of the prophets, their job was to warn the people, to mourn for their sins, to turn away from their sins, and also woe. In other words, if you do not repent, misery and disaster will befall you. Now, in today's first reading, which follows from yesterday's first reading, we have the angels, or 6 men, directed to go and slaughter everyone except those who are marked with a sign on their forehead. And the ones who get marked are the ones who sigh and groan over all the abominations that are being committed in the city of Jerusalem. In other words, these are people who are concerned about the fact that so many people are sinning in Jerusalem, and the realization that because everybody is sinning, or the majority of people are sinning, it's going to bring misery and disaster upon the entire city of Jerusalem. And sometimes people, they have this attitude, well, I'm only focused on my own sins. Jesus says, before you remove the splinter from someone's eye, remove the log from your own eye. So that's true. We have to try to be as good as we can. But at the same time, we do need to be concerned about others, not just to be removing splinters from their eyes, but sometimes entire logs. In other words, some people's sins are very drastic, very severe. So we do need to be concerned. Now notice the ones who have this concern, the ones who sigh and groan over all the abominations that are committed in the city of Jerusalem, they are the ones who are marked. They are the ones who are spared. Okay? And then the angel comes and kills everyone else. So how about today? Like I said, a lot of people, they think, oh, well, I just focus on myself, my own sins, let other people do what they do. If some people choose to do this or choose to do that, who am I to judge? It's not that we're judging. It's not that we're judging their souls. We're trying to help them and make them realize your behavior, your attitude, or the choices you're making it's not good. It's going to be detrimental to you. Should we be concerned? Yes, absolutely. So, in other words, do we want to be the ones who are marked, who are going to be spared, or are we going to be part of the ones who just don't care and are going to be killed in the end? So, when it comes to things like the life chain, for example, why is it that so few people come out? Well, they don't care. Well, let them do whatever. Let the government do whatever, right? When it comes to voting, do we vote for pro-life politicians, or we don't care, or are we more concerned about other issues? In other words, we do need to care. And it's by caring that we show love. It's by speaking out that we manifest love. And if all of us were united and spoke out, so many injustices in society would be undone. I mean, we could get the governments to ban pornography, child porn even, the sexualization of our children, and things like the life chain can be so much more effective if everybody came out and spoke out together. Let us do what we can to correct our brethren, to correct people in society, for not just for their sake, but for the sake of entire societies, which also means for our own sake also.